Welcome to this episode of the Autism Annex podcast. I'm John Andrew Slominski. We've spoken before on the podcast about the issues that individuals on the autism spectrum face in the job market. In fact, my guest on our last episode, Temple Grandin, makes a very strong case for education in the skilled trades as an important and often overlooked pathway toward employment. Estimates vary widely, but several studies suggest that in the U.S., the unemployment rate among adults with autism hovers around 40%, while other estimates indicate that in some locations, that number might be as high as 85%. My guest today is Danny Combs, founder of Teaching the Autism Community Trades, better known as TACT, based in Denver, Colorado. And TACT works to solve that very problem. TACT was founded in 2016 and is a nonprofit that provides education in the trades to individuals with autism, equipping them with the skills for meaningful employment in fields that capitalize on their unique and individual strengths. Danny, I'm excited to learn more. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You took a pretty unusual pathway into this work. You were in the midst of a music career in Nashville when you picked up, moved to Colorado, and started this nonprofit to teach trades to people on the autism spectrum. That's quite a shift. Could you tell that story?
Yeah, it's a bit of an unusual path, perhaps one that not many folks would follow in. So you're correct. So it's helpful to look at it in the overarching long-term perspective. So I come from a family of trades folks. So my great-grandfather happened to be neighbors to a gentleman that started a company called Grumman that most people know now as Northrop Grumman, and big aerospace company. And he was the real tradesfolk in the family. I mean, he could fix anything. He was amazing. And then my grandfather followed suit after the service in the Air Force, became an engineer for Grumman and helped actually design the lunar module. And then my dad ended up becoming a general contractor, and his degree was in civil engineering, became a general contractor. And so naturally then here comes me being fourth generation trades and said, heck no, I don't want to do this. And so decided to run away to Nashville and become a professional musician. And that's exactly what I did. And it ended up working out okay. I was very fortunate that I got to work with some amazing people and meet some incredible people and do some really fun things that paid the bills. And then my amazing son, Dylan, was born. And you're thinking musician Bob Dylan. Yes, you would be correct. And, some of the things that we noticed that made Dylan extra special, we had discovered at Vanderbilt, came to be called autism. And I would love to tell you that, when the doctors tell you that your child is autistic, that I took it, very excitedly, but I didn't. There was definitely a period where I was confused, where I was far from, the integrity of, being that amazing dad. And at the end of the day, I started looking at all the things that my son could do and all the strengths that he did have. And I started seeing that, this word autism was not this, terrible thing. At first, it was just like literally a binder for any parent that has been told their child's autistic. They give you a book. When I say book, it's a 3-ring binder full of a bunch of pamphlets. At least that was my experience. And they say, good luck. And when I discovered all the things that he could do, I started reframing my thinking and I started diving into research. How can I support my son? Not changing him, but embracing him for who he is and finding a way to really build up the things that he could do. Because he was 6.5 before he could say, hello, Dad, I love you. But he could visualize and conceptualize these amazing things. And I was that dad that let my son play with scissors. And so he would make all these incredible things. And so I started looking for, ironically, a nonprofit or something that worked within the trades, my family background, that could support him and build him up. And I couldn't find anything. There was nothing. And so I ended up talking to Dr. Temple Grandin and said, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? Should I do this? And she said, put down your guitar and go do it. And that was, for whatever reason, the straw that broke the camel's back, the catalyst, that little push that I needed to get me over the ledge. And did. And I had really good lawyers in New York from music career. It ended up going and starting TACT, and it just took off right away. And it started as me. It was me teaching in the back of a truck. I'm a car guy. So if you're going to do it, you do it right. So it was a 58 Chevy on a police car frame with a 350 on 20s, and, it's scooting along just fine. Of course, the first class we ever did was teaching instrument building because there's still that, musician in me. So we taught ukuleles, and that was it. That got it started. And it started with getting kids excited. Then it's grown to, this incredible employment transition program. We now have a new law that we got passed that created an entirely new public school designation for not just TACT students, but all autistic and neurodivergent individuals across the state of Colorado to get vocational and educational training that leads towards opportunity and that equality of opportunity that they haven't had previously. Now TACT, serves thousands of students, all kinds of people from all over the country. We have a staff of around 25, 19,000 square foot facility with all these corporate sponsorships. I mean, it's really grown to be this amazing vessel and hub of the autism and neurodiversity communities. It's pretty powerful, I think.
So take us inside that hub. You have a unique teaching facility there in Denver. And although we can't see it on the podcast, I'd love for you to give us a tour. What's it like to walk into TACT?
Yeah, so, it's a great thing. And I like to preface this because it helps put in perspective of just how incredible the transformation that was brought upon the building by the community. We purchased, with the help of an organization called the Urban Land Conservancy, a 19,000 square foot facility in 2022. It was a facility called AccuTube where they made stainless steel and vulcanized steel tubes, rubber tubes. It was gross. It was nasty. The walls were coated with all kinds of stuff. Blew us away that when we did all these, environmental tests, that they didn't find every kind of terrible thing you could possibly imagine for a decade upon decade. So we purchased this in July of 22. We had been in a facility we were renting down by the Broncos Stadium previously after we'd gone from the truck to there. And we have so many partners now that hire our graduates, over 60 of them, which is pretty powerful, that saw the value from a value proposition perspective, not from a charity perspective, but from these individuals are incredible assets to our organization perspective, that these businesses chipped in time, money, manpower, all kinds of resources. And we were able to completely renovate a $1.5 million renovation on a 19,000 square foot facility in 6 months. That's including the architecture, the permits, everything. I like to put that in perspective because it shows just how involved the community is with TACT. I think that's pretty incredible to have that number of businesses that see the value in the autistic way of being. And so when you first walk in, first it's a gray building with fun yellow doors. You walk in and we have all these vintage classic cars. So you see a 63 Chevy, you see the 58 Chevy, you see a 71 Volkswagen, the lobbies with reclaimed wood from the gentleman that builds all the buildings out west for like Google, and all of the Silicon Valley folks donated all of the reclaimed wood. And so you see all of this reclaimed wood in a 5,000 square foot auto garage that it looks like a simulation shop. It looks just like an auto shop would look. 3 rotary lifts, engines everywhere from Toyota, cars from Subaru that sponsor us, all of these tools, everything's set up with the idea of universal design behind it to inherently create this incredibly welcoming and safe environment. And then as I go through the tour, we have tables that our students made themselves that they hang out with in the beginning. There's a color therapy / sensory room. There's a kitchen. Upstairs, there is 2 incredible tech spaces. We have what we call Tech for the Trades, which is not every student ends up turning a wrench. That's just a reality. It's not going to be something for everybody. However, a lot of our community likes tech, and we find that within the tech community, they've often overlooked, coming from a cyber and IT perspective, design, architecture, engineering that is a lot of times overlooked for our community, because it seems like when you think autism and employment, a lot of times it goes towards tech and finance. So we have a Tech for the Trades part that we have CNC machines and 3D printers and lasers where they're designing, kitchen cabinets. They're designing widgets, the things that Dr. Temple Grandin, said would fix random things on spacecraft and airplane parts. And they do all of that. And then we have a welding shop that is sponsored by Miller. So it has 6 booths that are state-of-the-art prototypes for Miller, which is one of the most incredible, largest welding organizations in the country, if not the world, with giant CNC plasma tables and all kinds of stuff. And then into the carpentry shop, it's all, covered in beetle kill and OSB and set up with all these different stations. Nothing's watered down. You see table saws, sanders, band saws, lathes, everything that a neurotypical would do. It's just set up and changing the environment to help our clients be successful. Lots of natural lighting, not a single fluorescent bulb. Everything is an LED. Space-wise, everything's laid out and labeled with graphs and charts and skeleton boards and all of these different things that would be set up to help, visual learners as well as learners that like to read. And it's pretty powerful. Then there's an electronics section for electrical that has everything from EVs to commercial and electrical, residential. We're working on a culinary space. We're putting in about a $1 million culinary commercial kitchen. And then there's, boardrooms and meeting rooms and all that kind of stuff. But the amazing thing is when you walk in, it feels like the whole building just has soul, in the sense that even the lobby has a black and white checkerboard floor with beetle kill and, fun vintage Mini Coopers turned into furniture, and a wall full of all of the graduates that we've gotten placed into jobs and awards and our news articles and all of those things that help celebrate our community. We want them to see that we're celebrating them all the time and all of their achievements and how they're the pioneers that are kind of reframing what's possible for autistic individuals in employment.
That's a pretty incredible setup you're describing. You're talking about industry standard, high quality equipment for your students to learn on. And I have to imagine that the variety alone gives students a lot of agency in discovering new things that they may be interested in, but not even know about before arriving at TACT.
It's pretty amazing. So the thing that I'm most proud of about TACT is it creates that equality of opportunity that they get to choose their own career. When you go to a lot of organizations that are well-meaning government organizations, they don't really have the resources to give somebody the choice of where they want to work. It's traditionally been approached from a charity perspective where it's, hey, here's an organization that's quote unquote willing to hire from our community. And I've got clients that are looking for work and they pair them together, right? And so the strengths aren't being utilized, the talent's not being utilized, the preference isn't being utilized. It's merely just they have a job, here's somebody, body in a room kind of thing. No one wins from that. So at TACT, when we're going through our training, first it's competency-based. So some of our clients are with us 6 months, some are with us a year, some are with us 3 years. It depends on how long. And then you're right, we do look at graduation as employment. That's how we view graduation, is that they've graduated into a job. And after they've had that training to their strengths, those jobs look like a variety of different things. We have students that are literally lube techs at Toyota dealerships, Subaru dealerships, Jeep dealerships, Dodge dealerships. We have some that just work in the warehouse, if that's what they choose to do. They're the parts person that's helping either stock shelves, or they could be the customer service person. We have some that are welding giant steel buildings. We have some that are welding widgets. And like when I say widgets, I mean little things that are, working in factory lines. They're making over and over and over type again, because there's a lot of automation and they're running some of those machines. We have some that are running forklifts in warehouses. We have some that are literally designing restrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, all kinds of different things for flooring companies where they're laying out all of the tile using the skills they've learned. We have some working in cybersecurity for banking. We have a great partnership with a local university called Metro State University, where they get their Tier 1 SOC certification. And they're doing a project called Project Pisces, where they're keeping the rural parts of the state safe, where municipalities and school districts and power plants, they funnel all of that cybersecurity to the university, and TACT clients are very involved with that. And according to the current Attorney General, could just be a re-election thing, but he released a report saying that TACT clients helped keep 433,000 Coloradans safe from cybersecurity safe. That's pretty awesome. And they work for those organizations that are doing that. Then we have some that, despite going through our program, they want to work at a coffee house or they want to work at a grocery store. And if that's what they want to do, awesome. We find a way to do that, but they get the real choice to choose what that looks like for them at that point.
You've mentioned that your experience as a parent has had a big impact on how TACT focuses on students' strengths rather than deficits. On a practical level, how does that work? Do you have a process for identifying strengths? And what about students who may have needs for a wide range of supports?
Those are all great questions. So it's multi-layered. So the way that we've taken the steps that we've taken, I should say, to really get this sequenced is a long-term game. We recognize that the whole model for our community really doesn't exist. So it's definitely going to take a long time. It's going to take decades to get it where we really need it to be. And so what we start with is we have camps and workshops that are really just designed for exposure, exploration, discovery, and immediate success, meaning that these are don't take much time. They're pop-in, low commitment opportunities for individuals to get the chance to actually experience what it's like to work within the trades. We do that because neurotypical comprehensive high schools or training programs usually don't welcome our community into them, or if they do, they're given an iPad and said, sit in the corner kind of thing. Most organizations that are, big trade organizations struggle when they already have 60 individuals in a class. Oh my gosh, how do you put 60 individuals on, in an auto garage that's 32 bays and a handful of them are autistic with one teacher? They don't know what to do. And so they don't give our community the opportunity to really explore it. So we start there. And then we let them guide what their interests are. And I say low commitment because if they try a welding class and they didn't like it, okay, let's try a carpentry class. Let's try an auto class. Let's try an electrical class. Let's try an HVAC class. Let's look at all of those different opportunities and try them until you find the one that actually makes you happy. Then once we are guided by that individual to that perspective, then we start really taking data and we're looking at, what is their frustration tolerance? What's their executive functioning? What are their fine motor, their gross motor, their socialization, all these different things. You need math. You need socialization. It's kinesthetic. You need those communication skills. You need problem solving skills. And so we document all of that. And then as we're practicing the trades, once we've looked at where we work with that individual, then we have our career tracks program that's Monday through Friday, all of a sudden a lot more intensive. Then they're coming in and they're getting that hands-on day after day after day, comprehensive based education and training towards employment. Once they've developed that skill and they've met those competencies, then we start putting together portfolios. We start working on finding the right employer setting. Because we have such a big database of employers, we're able to figure out which employer, like a headhunter in a lot of ways, which employer is going to be the best one suited for that client to be successful. And then we have a team of in-person job coaches and specialists that go out and support them once they've been placed into that job. There's lots of lovely websites and apps that do amazing things. We haven't found any replacement for having a physical body in the room that is that person's go-to. It's not cost effective. It's terribly expensive. It's terribly time consuming. It's not efficient, but it works because it helps those individuals have the support that they need. And so if you're looking at it from a business perspective on paper, you're like, man, that is not the way to do it for profit. But if you're looking at it from the human, social capital perspective, it's 100% the way to do it. And so it's a trade-off. But we find that, we're more invested in that individual and the community than what necessarily works on paper.
So TACT has gone from a pickup truck to a 19,000 square foot facility. And I'm wondering about some of the barriers or growing pains you've experienced, either practically or maybe even philosophically, as you've grown. In a way, your proposition seems risky. You're disrupting a narrative about neurodiversity and employability, and you're doing it with welding torches and pneumatic tools in hand.
We could talk about that all day. There's so many things to that question. When TACT first started, we were turned down for insurance 13 times. And we had a great insurance broker that really worked hard, and we still pay quite a bit in insurance. It's a lot to do what we do. Insurance agents were not happy about the idea of autistic individuals. There was I feel like a prejudice that existed at that time that, they were afraid of what the liability would look like. When we started too, we would go to other nonprofits, special education schools, government agencies that worked with autistic individuals and tell them what we do. They looked at us like we were crazy. You should have seen the faces, starting in the pickup truck, driving to the first school and starting to unload power tools and, all these different things. Their eyes got so big where they were like, oh my gosh, this is scary. Mm-hmm. And the nature of when you trust an individual with those tools and you teach them how to safely use them, our community stereotypically spilling are rule followers. And when you show them how to use the tool safely, I swear if there was ever a way to like physically measure excitement in the room, you can see it on their face. Like it's just so overwhelming that they are beaming with joy. I mean, on every ounce of their body, and they're like excited about it and they feel trusted. And we have students that have come to us in the past that have all kinds of service plans for saying that their line of sight, or, if they work with Medicaid and they use the CIS level, that are the CIS levels, 5, 6, 7, which usually means, needing more support or more quote unquote highly impacted. These clients, they do amazing. I mean, they absolutely can crush it, but it's crossing that threshold and that line and be like, yes, I'm trusting you to do this, and showing them how to do it safely and successfully. And that's what I mean with our camps, where we set them up with projects for success. It's very easy to design a woodworking project where somebody's going to be successful at it. It's not like we're giving them a log and saying, here's a mill, go mill this log and then make something. We can do all kinds of things where they can put things together at first to get excited about it. Like, wow, I can do this. I can achieve this. And then as they get better at it, then yes, that level of complexity increases with it. And then we teach them more and more challenging things. But it's no different than any way anybody else has ever been taught. I mean, we're showing it to our community. I think what that does socially and for the community at large is, it's showing that, our community by and large has so far played it safe for a variety of different reasons. I mean, even after all of this time, TACT has been going at it since 2016. No one's copied us yet. Why? Like, I keep waiting for the day where I'm going to read an article and be like, new autism trade program set up and name the state. I haven't seen it yet. And I got to do a presentation at the White House a couple of years ago, or last year. And the Department of Labor was at this presentation. They're like, we looked it up in our database. There's nothing else like this. And it's like, when you're hearing that from the National Department of Labor, oh my gosh, why? Like, why is no one doing this still? And so it's interesting where, despite I think we're showcasing success, we have an 83.3% job placement rate, versus our state's average of 12.2. I mean, we're dramatically ahead of the curve getting these individuals placed into high-paying jobs with an average starting, salary of $19.86. We have some of our tech students that are going out of the gate at $80K a year. That's a lot of money, that are doing amazing things. There's still a resistance for parents, that are afraid that they're going to lose their Social Security insurance, getting back on that. Benefits counseling, what does that look like for the individuals? For a lot of families that use waiver services of some kind know that it can take years, if not decades. There's almost okay, I finally just got on it. Do I really want to get off of it? It opens up all kinds of narrative and dialogue of what do we really want for our community? Do we really believe as a society, holistically or wholly that we can, that our community is capable of doing this? It opens up all kinds of narratives.
I think one challenge that'll resonate with a lot of educators is bringing people with very different areas of expertise together to teach these skills and trades. You can have expert plumbers or carpenters, say, who know nothing about autism. And meanwhile, you have special education teachers who have expertise in autism and evidence-based practices, but maybe they've never turned a wrench. How do you make that work?
It's a great question, too. So at TACT, that we always have a 6 students. We say 6-1. It's really a 3-1 ratio. So we never have more than 6 students or clients per class. And we always have a trade professional with just that, a special education professional, because you're exactly right that there's these buckets of individuals that haven't worked together. Again, kind of like that's the way things have kind of segmented and segregated in education that we're talking about earlier. So we put them together. And so it's really a 3-1 ratio. And the idea is that at TACT, at least, we started by getting a lot of older or retired tradesfolk because honestly we couldn't afford young individuals either, because they can make so much more money working in the trades, and the wisdom and knowledge that came from those folks that have been in it for decades, you just can't replicate that. You'll never find it in YouTube video, the stuff that our grandparents learned. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff on there, but at the end of the day, that knowledge that they had, it's kind of how do you capture all of that? And we put that together with a special education professional, whether it's an RBT, a CODA, a special ed teacher themselves, a BCBA, a therapist, or, variety, whatever it is. We put them together and we have them work together as a team. And that special educator brings their knowledge and helps the trade professional look at it a different way. But it takes that teamwork. So we do all kinds of trainings at TACT where we work with other schools, and we have a mobile program that goes currently into inner city schools. And we train their staff and we work with their students because we're trying to do just that. We're trying to teach them. The hard thing is that trades individuals are so in demand and they make so much money. I mean, the Wall Street Journal just had a great article come out just a couple weeks ago how plumbers and electricians are the new millionaires because they make so much money. It's hard to get those individuals to now want to come teach, let alone come teach, the autistic individuals, because they still, as a society, view it as something different or more challenging or lesser than. So it's taken those individuals to have the growth mindset too of starting to work together. I think, there's a greater danger in the sense that our society is large over the last couple decades has really pushed out the trades in favor of college. Mike Rowe, who's been a great supporter of our program, talks about when you look at it, they even shorted the title as years have gone by. It's no longer even vocational training. Now it's just voc ed. As something gets shortened and shortened and shortened, it demeans the value of it at that point. But it's going to take a complete shift. The neat thing is Gen Z seems to be kind of going more trades focused. So maybe silver lining. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Just to play devil's advocate, some people might hear what you're saying and think, well, that's wonderful for kids on the autism spectrum who maybe already have a lot of skills or high achievement levels or lots of independence. But what about individuals who have significant support needs? I think it's important to note that TACT doesn't discriminate, and you teach the whole spectrum. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Yeah,
we teach the full spectrum. And so, I know it sounds a funny story, but we had a client, one of our favorite stories we'd love to tell. When I do my presentations in person and I'm showing, I always showcase, not as tokens, but just to kind of level the playing field of that story, where with those, of course, individuals' permission. All the individuals that we've gotten placed that are CIS level 6s or 7 or need more support, because there is an instant thought of, okay, you're exactly right. They're doing this. That's great. That must be for the ones that don't need as much support. We had a client that I'd love to talk about come to us. He was in another autism program for 4 years. After 4 weeks in our program, he could read a tape measure down to a 16th of an inch and actually use power tools, making all of these different things.
Wow.
4 weeks versus 4 years. He then got a job working with a realtor where he was making all of these incredibly intricate gift baskets out of wood. I can send you pictures of some of the stuff that he did. I mean, it's incredible. And he used his iPad to communicate. In fact, I didn't know, I always like to joke, but it's true, that the F emoji was a thing until he gave me the F emoji on that iPad, because when it's on an iPad, it's pretty big. And that's a lovely thing to see there. And I think it's important to recognize that, whatever, verbal capacity, if we're looking at it in that regards, exists, there's all kinds of devices now that assist with that. And then one of the great things about COVID, if you can look at a great thing of COVID, is that opened up the whole idea of remote work, of different working opportunities. We have one individual that she works for a solar company, and she gets to work remotely, and she gets to use satellite images, and she can look at the roof, and she can calculate how many solar panels are going to go on the roof, what power needs to go into that, how is it going to get laid out, all of those kind of things. You don't need to be in person for that kind of work. You don't need to be able to, verbally articulate things on the phone. You can chat it, you can email it, you can text it, you can do all kinds of things to actually get all of those calculations across. Likewise, we have, right in our auto shop, for example, most auto shops have the lifts at 15 inches. If you're in a professional auto shop, they're pretty close because they like to cram them in. Ours are 40, even though that's a little bit further than ADA. So our individuals that are using wheelchairs, they can get through with the wheelchair as well. We like to set it up where, again, that idea of universal design, it gives everybody more space at that point. Everybody wins from that. There's all kinds of different tools and things existing for everybody at this point as well. So I think it comes down to chance. And I think it comes down to, letting people try it. We have found that all autistic individuals can be very successful in employment when they're set up for success. And given that kind of level of individualism and differentiation in their education, it does take more work. It just does. I mean, that's the reality. And it takes more training. I mean, it's not a silver bullet what we're doing. It's not easier. And we like to say that when we're practicing everything on TACT, and part of the reason we say it's competency based is some of our clients, it does just take a little bit more time. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be, a magic, hey, come learn carpentry in 6 weeks and now you're magically a carpenter. That whole notion for coming from a generational family of tradesfolk is rather insulting too in itself. And for anybody, where does that even come from in education? It seems like a lot of educators, for those that are listening to this, that you said a lot of educators listen, recognize that most education is shifting to competency-based education because timetable-based education doesn't make any sense anymore. Never really did, but now we're starting to put people first, and we can, make it different.
You've described a lot of TACT's successes and victories over the years, but clearly it's been no easy feat. What are some of the challenges that you're still facing?
There's a ton. Transportation is still a really big burden for us, especially in Denver. While Metro Denver is, a big city, it gets country pretty quick, rural pretty quick. And so if somebody gets an employment opportunity, especially in the trades, 5 minutes or 10 miles outside of town, some of our, clients can't drive themselves or choose not to, or rely on, programs that here in Colorado, we call it RTD. And there's also a thing through Uber and Lyft with RTD where they can get rides, assisted rides cheaper, but transportation is hard, for sure. The benefits counseling, that's very, very difficult. Getting individuals into our programs, that's difficult. As a parent, one of the things that we've always set up from the get-go is we didn't want our program to be that program that serves just affluent and socially economically well-off families. We wanted anybody to come to it. What I've seen as I've traveled, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have seen when you travel the country, is there is a ton of programs if you're willing to spend $65,000, $85,000, $100,000 a year. There's lots of those where it's assisted living, where it's transportation, whatever it is. Not everybody can swing that. And so it leaves families that can't. What do we do? And that's not fair. And so we work really hard to work with grantors. Our COO, Becky Mershon, who's really been with us since the beginning. She really deserves more credit than me. I mean, she's the behind the scenes person that makes everything work. And I think with any successful organization, there's always that person. She's the one here at TACT. And she has really busted it to get all of these foundations on board that create scholarships for us that have helped us open the doors to lots of families and set up transportation and then support them in employment and all of those different things. And that's been a huge, huge barrier for us. Getting the employers on board, that took a lot of time. That was not an overnight thing. And it took, honestly, a lot of parents working in organizations that were in the place to go to their boss or were just happened to be the boss and to start saying yes and to demonstrate it at first. Very, very few organizations that we work with do not have a family member involved in some capacity, at least the first ones. It's since kind of grown from there. But it took a lot of parents stepping up too and saying, yes, this is working. I want to give my child a chance. I mean, when you start looking at, I serve in the Air Force too, in the National Defense Authorization Act of last year, on page 2,489 for your listeners that like light reading, you'll see it started the opportunity for service members to serve openly that are autistic and neurodivergent. And then most recently, they just released an article talking about 5,000 plus that have gotten in because of that. That's from those of us that are family members that are speaking up and saying, hey, we want our kid to have a chance too.
At the top of the episode, you shared about your son, Dylan, who was a big inspiration for starting TACT back in 2016. How old is Dylan now, and how's he doing?
Oh, he's adding to the gray hairs, that is for sure. Your viewers don't get to see them, but man, they have gone gray. Yeah. So Dylan, he's now 15. He's going to be 16 in January, which is pretty amazing. And, the amazing thing about technology is Dylan's, verbal language, he's doing well. He's doing really well, but he communicates exceedingly well through his iPhone, through email, through written word. I mean, he's just a very good writer. I would love to tell you that he's turning a wrench. I can't say he necessarily loves it. Ironically, he just got his second car. His first car was a 77 Mercedes that I bought at a vehicle auction that does stuff for charities for $800, and we got it running together. Sometime I'll have to send you the video of his face when he got that car running. That had been sitting for a long, long time. It's pretty powerful. And I wanted him to learn how to work on his own car, and then he had to learn how to sell it, and we put it on Facebook, and sold it. He took the money, and now he's got a car that he's practicing to drive on now that he's got his permit. But so he is learning those skills. But he's at a public school, a mountain school that has a really good autism program. He does still take the camps and workshops at TACT, of course. But it seems like writing is the way he feels empowered. I think for a long time, his speech, he wasn't able to find his words, as we used to say when he was little. Now it seems like that he's writing things down. He writes some text to me sometimes, especially when he's upset and he wants to let me know why he's upset. That is pretty articulate, pretty powerful. I'm really proud of him.
Danny, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's been great to learn more about TACT and the possibilities for people on the autism spectrum in the skilled trades. I wish you all the best.
Thanks for sharing about TACT. We appreciate it. We've got a great team, and we believe in our community. And so it's exciting to see others recognizing all our community can do.
You've been listening to my conversation with Danny Combs, founder of the nonprofit Teaching the Autism Community Trades, or TACT, in Denver, Colorado. Since our conversation in November of 2024, Danny has taken on a new role. He now leads the newly created Colorado Disability Opportunity Office, which is responsible for creating infrastructure and supports across state agencies to promote independence and opportunities for individuals with disabilities. The Autism Annex podcast was developed by Star Autism Support. I'm John Andrew Slominski. Thanks for listening, and until next time, take good care of yourself and one another.